The Author Shelf. It's about books and stuff.
Good afternoon, I'm Georgie Donaghy and welcome to the Author's Shelf. A big thank you to Scott Ferrugia and his open house mix. Scott will be back again next Sunday from 9 till 12 right here on 2SSR 99.7 FM. Now you can tune into today's show via the 2SSR.com.au and by clicking on the Listen to 2SSR Live online tab, or you can also listen via TuneIn, the TuneIn app on your mobile device. Now, my guest on today's show is the author of the very popular Violet Mackerel series. Anna Branford has taken the writing world by storm with her delightful character. She'll join me a little later in the show, so sit back and relax as I bring you the stories beyond the page. You're listening to the Author's Shelf on 2SSR 99.7 FM, Sound of the Sutherland Shire. Coming up next, Anna Branford.
In stereo, this is 2SSR FM, Sound of the Shire.
Thanks for tuning in. It's time to welcome today's guest. Anna was born in the Isle of Man and spent her early childhood in Sudan and Papua New Guinea before moving to Australia. Creative writing was her favourite subject at school and she wrote stories in all these different countries. Anna is a doll maker and a sociology lecturer at Victoria University. Violet Mackerel's brilliant plot was her first published book for Walker Books Australia and hit bookshelves in 2010. It was an honour book in the Children's Book Council of Australia Book of the Year Awards, Younger Readers' Notable Books for 2011. Now, even though I have featured this talented author on Creative Kids Tales, it was someone else who conducted the interview, my daughter Charlotte. Now, co-hosting with me today, and I fear I won't get the opportunity to ask Anna too many questions this time around either, is my daughter Charlotte. Hello, Charlotte. Welcome to the Author's Shelf.
Hi.
Charlotte's making her radio debut today as my co-host. She's very excited to be chatting with her favourite author, Anna Branford. So without any further delay, otherwise I think Charlotte will just absolutely burst. Anna Branford, welcome to the Author's Shelf.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Now, I think I might ask the first couple of questions. Anna, right. I always begin my show asking my guests, what is their story? Please tell us, what is the Anna Branford story?
The Anna Branford story. I think it would have to be one of those stories about someone who was always feeling a bit shy and nervous and worried and who liked spending quite a lot of time alone and doing her own thing and who wasn't quite sure if there was actually a place in the world for somebody like that. And then finding just sort of bit by bit that there was a place. I found some things I was suddenly very interested in studying and some people who liked the sorts of stories that I could write. And it was a big surprise, really, and a very welcome one, that as I've kept on doing the things I've really wanted to do, the world seems to keep on finding places for them. So if I have a story that is my own, I think that might be it.
That's a good story. Can you talk into your phone a little bit? Can you just try and speak in? We're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Oh, okay.
That's better. Great. Thank you. What age were you when you came to Australia, Anna?
I was about 7, I think.
7. So that's my co-host's age today. Oh, I fear I'm in trouble now. Did you know you always wanted to be a writer?
I think it would always have been a daydream for me. I really loved Enid Blyton and I loved Roald Dahl growing up, so I'm sure I would have had plenty of elaborate fantasies about being either one of those. But as I said before, I didn't have a great deal of confidence. So although I was always writing, and I have notebooks full from that time of half-finished stories and half-baked ideas and poems and all those sorts of things from as soon as I knew how to write, I don't think I really thought I'd have much success as a writer. So I think I thought of it more as a private interest and a bit of a daydream.
Well, we're very glad that you shared your stories with us. And I have to tell you, Anna, when you said Roald Dahl, my co-host gave me the thumbs up there. So. Okay, all right, let's talk about Violet Mackerel. I can see Charlotte's bursting to ask you some questions, so I'll hand over to my co-host.
Lovely.
Charlotte, over to you.
Hi, Anna. How did you think of Violet Mackerel? Is she based on someone you know?
Hello, Charlotte. Gosh, that's a very, very good question. So Violet is a bit of a mix-up of quite a few different people. I have a younger sister called Kate, who's always been a completely hilarious sort of person. So I think a lot of Violet's funniness comes from her. And then Violet is also a bit of a worrier who's imagination can make things seem a bit more worrying than they probably really need to be, and those parts of Violet are definitely from me. And then I've looked after and been friends with lots of children in my life, and they inspire really everything I write, but I think especially the character of Violet.
Violet is 7 in the first book, just like me. Does she get older in each book?
That's another good question. I suppose she does a bit, but not too much. I remember when I was reading as a child, I always lost interest if children grew up too fast. So in some of the books I liked, like, say, Anne of Green Gables or What Katie Did, I only ever liked the first bits when they were proper children. I lost interest when they grew up. But Violet, through the stories, has a lot of life experiences, and some of them are quite small and some of them are very big. So I don't think she can help growing up a little bit through the stories. But I'll tell you a secret, Charlotte. It's only you and me who really know that she's 7. I never say in the books how old she is. So it makes me really happy that you guessed the exact age that I was thinking of too.
Very good. I thought that we were looking at the front of each cover of the books, and I think Charlotte came up with that question because as the books progress, Violet looks a little bit older on the cover of each book.
I think you're probably right about that.
So I think that's why that's where we came up with that question from.
But it's a great question.
I'm butting in now. I'll hand back over to Charlotte. Charlotte, next question, sweetheart.
What other books have you written?
Well as the Violet stories, I wrote a book in the Puffin Aussie Bite series called Sophie's Salon about a girl called Sophie who would very much like to be a hairdresser. And for Walker Books, I wrote a story called Neville No Phone, which is about a boy and his best friend Enzo, and they really, really want a mobile phone, but their parents won't let them have one. And then just recently I wrote my first picture book called Lily Pilly's Sister, which is about a fairy in the Australian bush, and her mum is just about to have a baby.
We actually have a copy of that book in the studio, which Charlotte read just before the show, and the illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. Did you choose the illustrator for that book, Anna?
I didn't, but I couldn't be happier with the choice that Walker made. I think Linda Catchlove is just extraordinary.
They're absolutely wonderful.
How do you test out your stories before sending them to publishers?
Gosh, that's another great question. I'm lucky to have a very supportive family and some very supportive friends, and I give them most of my stories to read before I send them to anybody else and ask them to tell me what they think. And they're great. They're never too mean or too discouraging, but they're very good at telling me where things have gone a bit wrong or where something could be made much better. So those are the people that I usually test my new story ideas on.
Thanks for listening to The Author's Shelf. Where do you get the different story ideas for Violet Mackerel?
Well, some of them are my own memories, like the feeling that Violet has of being very, very shy, going to a birthday party in someone's very beautiful house, or things like the feeling of really, really wanting something that's quite small, like a blue china bird, and not really being able to explain why. But a lot of them are things that are going on in my own life while I'm writing. So, for example, I was a bit sick myself at the time I was writing Violet Mackerel's Remarkable Recovery, and I was spending some time in hospital waiting rooms. So that gave me the idea for a story of her experience in the hospital. And also the sister that I mentioned before, Kate, she was getting ready for her wedding while I was writing Violet Mackerel's Personal Space. So I think I might have had weddings on my mind while I was writing that book. So those are the sorts of places that the ideas come from.
I love Sophie's Salon. How did you think of that story?
I'm so glad you like that one, Charlotte, because it's a really special one for me too. At the time that I wrote Sophie's Salon, I was working as a babysitter in the evenings for quite a few different children, and I did my writing after they'd gone to bed. But one of my favourite things to do while they were awake was to do their hair in all different ways and then take gorgeous photos of them with, flowers from their gardens in their hair and that kind of thing. And we had so much fun with that game and making little salons in their houses that I think it just naturally started to turn into a story in my imagination.
What?
They're great questions, Charlotte. That's all right, sweetheart. Not just yet. Anna, I'm allowed to get a question here. What do you think the secret to writing a successful series is?
Look, it's such an interesting question. I think for some people it's definitely things like cliffhangers and really deeply compelling, dramatic plots and that kind of thing. But the series of books that I've always loved the most myself are ones that create a kind of friend for you that you become sort of genuinely fond of, and you're interested to catch up and see what they're up to now. So people like Ramona Quimby in Beverly Cleary's Ramona books, or Clarice Bean, that lovely character dreamt up by Lauren Child. So for me, I'm never too fussed about the winning of the great battle or the special magical riddle that will put all things right in the universe and that kind of thing. Personally, I keep reading a series because I want to see if the two sisters ever did resolve their differences, or if a character's special love of drawing is going to lead them somewhere interesting in their life. For me, it's the creation of that really fond kind of curiosity that makes a series successful.
How many stories are there in the Violet Mackerel series so far?
There are 6 on the shelves, and there are 8 altogether, so 2 more to come.
Wow, that's great. And as I said, it's a great little series, that one. Now, if you'd like to find out more about Anna's character, Violet Mackerel, visit the Violet Mackerel website. Yes, Violet Mackerel has her own website, and the website address is obviously www.violetmackerel. So that's VIOLETMACKEREL.com. Now, on our last show, we announced our Diane Bates and Bill Condon giveaway. It's time to announce the winner of those giveaways. And the winners are Pat Simmons and Kelly McDonald. Congratulations. You ladies have won a copy of Diane Bates's book and Bill Condon's book. Now, remember to listen out for how to enter in today's competition a little later in the show. Thanks for joining us today. My co-host Charlotte and I are chatting this afternoon with children's author Anna Branford. Anna, you also are very crafty, just like Violet Mackerel. Tell us, what are some of the things that you like to make?
Well, that's a lovely compliment to compare me with that character. For a few years now, I've been really obsessed with doll making. They're quite funny-looking things, and they're always made, for me, out of recycled fabric, usually linen. And if there's any time at all left after a long day, doll making is always the thing that I would love to be doing. I also do some other things. I do a bit of knitting, a bit of jewellery making. I don't have a lot of time in my life at the moment for any of this, so most of the craft that I do has to be done on the train to and from work. But it's surprising what you can do, actually, with 20 minutes on a train and a pocket full of felt and buttons and a needle and thread.
Well, they're actually beautiful little creations that you make, and I know you have a lot of them on your website, and we're going to give you a website address a little later in the show. What's a typical writing day for you, Anna?
Oh, Georgie, how I wish there was such a thing.
Be good, wouldn't it?
As you mentioned before, I'm a university lecturer as well as a writer, and a person who tries to make things too, so there really isn't a very typical or organised way that it all fits together. Just in some almost kind of magical sense, it somehow tends to every day fit together somehow.
Are you teaching full-time?
I am, yes.
Wow, okay, so yeah, you're definitely fitting all these bits and pieces in. It's
a busy life, it is. But if I could answer your question as I would like my life to be,
yes,
I would spend 2 or 3 hours of every day in a cafe with my laptop and a notepad and a pen, and that would be how I'd do it. And sometimes that happens, but not nearly as often as I wish.
Who was your greatest influence growing up?
In a practical way, my mum and dad are both very creative people. I don't think they'd identify themselves that way, but most of the things they make are useful and practical, so they wouldn't easily come under the category of creative. But I think they really taught me by their sort of example that if there's something in the world that you want and you can't find it, then the thing to do is to try and create it yourself.
Do you think they helped shape your chosen career?
Oh, absolutely. I think they did. And the other person I'd definitely mention as a big influence is my granny, whose name was Sylvia. She was one of those amazing grown-up people that I'm sure everybody knows at least one or two of, that she wasn't at all nonsensical or impractical or silly, but in her thinking and in the way she talked to me, there was always a little bit of room for something a bit magic. She really liked the word numinous to describe those sorts of things. So she was a huge influence on me, and we only lost her very, very recently in the last couple of weeks.
Oh,
so
that's
she's been a huge influence on my adult life as well.
very sorry to hear that.
Oh,
but yes, I think you're right. Everyone does know somebody in their life like that.
Mm.
All right. I'm getting dagger eyes here. I'm going to have to hurry my questions up. But first, we have a giveaway.
It's time for the Author Shelf giveaway. Da da da!
Charlotte actually said that without moving her mouth. Amazing. It's time for another Author Shelf giveaway. Anna has generously donated a copy of her How to Make Small Things with Violet Mackerel for us to give away. This is a great crafty book, some of the things that Anna and Violet like making. Now, for your chance to win, pop over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Author Shelf, and like our competition giveaway. I'll announce the winner on our next show. Now, you're listening to The Author Shelf. Welcome back. If you'd like to interact with us during the show, you can send us a message via our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Author Shelf, or you can tweet us at The Author Shelf, or even after the show. We'd love to hear from you as well. My guest today is children's author Anna Branford. Now, Charlotte, I believe you have another question or 10 for Anna.
What advice do you have for kids who want to be writers when they grow up?
Oh, can I ask before I answer, are you one of them, Charlotte? Would you like to be a writer?
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, my first, and I think my most important piece of advice is definitely don't wait until you're a grown-up. Write your stories now, because the world will never look the same as it does to you at this moment. The viewpoint that you have as a kid is completely unique. And also there are so many great opportunities for young writers. There are things like special writing competitions and classes and magazines that collect kids' stories, all the kinds of things that I was never brave enough to explore when I was young, and I really liked writing. So I always really emphasize these brilliant opportunities when I get asked this question. And I think the best thing that you can do, besides write and also obviously read as much as you can, is talk to people like teachers and librarians and parents, authors like me who sometimes visit schools, and ask them to help you find the best places to send your work. And the most important thing, of course, is to create the work, to keep a notebook nearby and jot down any idea you think you might be able to use, because a well-filled notebook is a brilliant thing for a writer of any age. I always have mine in my pocket.
What was your favourite book as a child?
Well, I had lots, like I'm sure all children do, but there's one in particular that I don't think was especially well known. It was called The Travelling Tooth, and it's by a writer called Anne Thwaite, and I absolutely loved it. It was about a girl whose parents moved between Libya and in England, so her life involved a lot of moving around between those places, and my life was a lot like that when I was a child, always moving between different countries and different cultures and never being able to take my friends with me. So I loved being able to take that book and that friend with me wherever I went, and I really felt as if she sort of understood somebody like me. But apart from that, I was a real Ramona Quimby girl. I loved Beverly Cleary's Ramona when I was young, and I still love her now.
Where do you get your story ideas?
I get asked this all the time, and I find it such a tricky question to answer. It's a very good question, though. Sometimes I think stories just kind of arrive in your head all by themselves, just a bit like a bird that just decided randomly to nest there. But then later, I find when I look at what I've written, I can find all these different threads that I can actually identify quite easily. Some of them are my own memories, some of them are things that people have told me or experiences that I've had. So for me, it's often a little bit backwards. I don't realize where the ideas came from until after I finish the story, and then I can spot some of the places.
Thank you, ladies. Very entertaining as always. Now we're going to take a short break, and when we return, Anna is going to read us an excerpt from her Violet Mackerel Brilliant Plot book. Thanks for tuning in to The Author's Shelf. Now, as promised, here's Anna with an excerpt from Violet Mackerel's Brilliant Plot. Anna, when you're ready.
Start at the beginning. It seemed like a good place. So, Violet Mackerel is a girl with a theory. Her theory is that when you're having a very important and brilliant idea, what generally happens is that you find something small and special on the ground. So whenever you spy a sequin or a stray bead or a bit of ribbon or a button, you should always pick it up and try very hard to remember what you were thinking about at the precise moment when you spied it. Then think about that thing a lot more. That is Violet's theory, which she calls the theory of finding small things. "Wake up, Violet," says Violet's mum. "It's nearly 5 o'clock. "It is Saturday, which is market day." Violet yawns. It's still dark. Mum's hair is a bit damp from her shower, and it smells like mangoes and blossoms. Violet leans forward for a snuggle and nearly falls asleep again. "Just stay awake until we're all in the van," says Mum. "Then you can sleep as much as you like." Violet's big brother Dylan and big sister Nicola are already awake, and they're helping to load up the van with fold-up tables and chairs, the big canopy umbrella, and boxes and baskets of Mum's knitting. They're going to the market like they do every Saturday morning to sell the woolly things Mum makes. Violet thinks she would quite like to wear her pyjama bottoms under her skirt today. They feel nice and warm from bed. Sometimes, if you say things like, "Can I wear my pyjama bottoms to the market?" people say things like, "No." But if you just put your skirt on over the top and have your eyebrows slightly raised like someone who is thinking of something very important and interesting, no one says anything at all.
Thank you very much, Anna. That's great. Now, for your chance to go into the draw to win a copy of How to Make Small Things with Violet Mackerel, simply like our Facebook post regarding this competition. We'll select a winner and announce them on our next show. We'll be right back to chat more with Anna and Charlotte in just a minute. You're listening to 2SSR 99.7 FM. We're chatting with children's author Anna Branford this afternoon.
Anna, will there be more Violet Mackerel adventures?
Oh, I do hope so, Charlotte. I'm so fond of her. I always want to check in and see what she and her family are up to. There'll definitely be a new Violet story later this year, which will be called Violet Mackerel's Helpful Suggestion. And in that one, Vincent needs to find a job, and he's finding that a bit tricky. And Violet's best friend, Rose, has gone to Japan for a holiday, and Violet is finding that a bit tricky. And then there'll be another Violet story after that too, a little bit later, called Violet Mackerel's Formal Occasion, where Violet gets to meet Rose's grandparents. So I'm pretty excited about both of those books because they explore a little bit more of Violet's friendship with her neighbour Rose, and I absolutely love Rose, so I really enjoy writing stories about those two together.
When are they due out, Anna?
One later this year and one the following year.
Oh, very good.
Mm. What are you writing this moment?
At the moment, I'm working actually on a new series. I think it's for readers probably a bit younger than you, Charlotte, but maybe if you know some young kids, you might enjoy reading it to them. It's a series about an elf called Leaf, who has a granny called Granny Small. And as I said before, my own granny has been very, very special in my life. So I'm really enjoying having the chance to write some stories about that relationship between a child, in this case an elf, and her granny.
Thank you, Anna. Coming up next on 2SSR is the Macedonian Radio Show. Are you an emerging author or illustrator? Are you serious about taking that next step on your creative journey? Why not visit creativekidstales.com.au? There you can have a full author or illustrator profile, including displaying your work, networking with others. You'll also find useful tools such as comprehensive publishers listing, writing tips, competition information, author interviews, book reviews, and loads more. Visit the Creative Kids Tales website today. What are you waiting for? creativekidstales.com.au. Now, we've been chatting with Anna Branford on the show today. Anna, what's the best advice you can give up-and-coming authors?
I think the best advice, in a way, is not to take too much advice. I mean, there are some fantastic books and websites that can really help you on your journey, but there has to come a point when you put those things aside and actually start your work. And when it comes to that, I think some of the time it's actually breaking rules that makes books as brilliant as they are. I sometimes think if experts had been going to predict, who on earth would have seen something like Eric Carle's Very Hungry Caterpillar, or Harry McClary, or The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, very, very sort of out of left field when they happened, and almost certainly written without any kind of a rule book. So I think that's my best bit of advice, not to take too much advice.
The Hungry Caterpillar actually celebrated its 45th birthday this week.
Wasn't that exciting?
Very
much.
That was
such a big favourite of mine. Was that a favourite in your household too?
Yeah, loved it. So, and I can't believe 45 years. That's very good. I'm getting the double thumbs up from Charlotte there. So, yes, no, excellent book. And yeah, 45 years to be still going strong is wonderful. Now, listeners, don't forget this week's giveaway. For your chance to win a copy of Anna's book, How to Make Small Things with Violet Mackerel, pop over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Author's Shelf. Simply like our post featuring the cover of Anna's book, which I will put on there a little bit later today. Sorry, I haven't got that up yet. We'll pick a winner and announce them on our next show. Anna, thanks for joining us on The Author's Shelf today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a lovely time talking to you and Charlotte.
Now, if you'd like to find out more about Anna Branford, visit her website, annabranford.com. That's Anna, as Anna said before, with 2 N's, and Branford is Branford. A big thank you to my wonderful co-host, Charlotte. Tell me, did you enjoy the show?
I loved it.
I think I might have to let you come back another time. What do you think about that?
Good.
Okay, that is all for this edition of The Author's Shelf. Thanks for joining us. As I said, next show coming up, Jackie French will be joining us on the 6th of April to pick up where she left off on the last show.